Hello and welcome to this Australian Biocommons webinar. My name is Melissa Burke. I'm the Australian Biocommons Training Manager and I'll be your host for today. This webinar is part of a series of bioinformatics training events. Each month we hear from local and international experts who present a bioinformatics topic that will support Australians to achieve their best environmental, agricultural and medical research. You can keep up to date with the latest Biocommons news and events on our website or by following us on social media. Before we begin today, we will take a moment to pause and acknowledge the traditional owners and the custodianship of the lands on which we meet today. For me, this is the Turrbal and Yagara people in Brisbane. We pay our respects to their ancestors and their descendants who continue cultural and spiritual connections to country, and we recognise their valuable contributions to Australian and global society. A couple of housekeeping things for you to be aware of. We do have a code of conduct in place for this webinar, and we ask that you work with us to create a welcoming environment for everybody. The session is being recorded and you'll soon find that on our YouTube channel, along with recordings of previous webinars. Auto-generated captions are available and you can turn these on or off through the More Options option in your Zoom dashboard. We also encourage and welcome questions for our speaker, and you can write these into the Q&A function in your Zoom dashboard. It is now also within those More Options. Biocommons' vision is that Australia's life science research is enhanced through world-class collaborative bioinformatics infrastructure. We recognise that people, their skills and knowledge are as critical to achieving this goal as the data, processes, software and equipment that they provide. With this in mind, we're thrilled to welcome Dr. Simon Breeden as our webinar speaker this month. Simon is the Associate Lead for the Technician Commitment, an initiative that is gaining momentum globally and here in Australia as a way of supporting and recognising the skilled research infrastructure workforce. Simon has worked in universities in the UK and Ireland for more than 25 years. He has a PhD in chemistry, a research background in drug development, and led a successful research group at the National University of Ireland, Galway. At the University of York, Simon transitioned from research into the role of Technical Operations Manager in Chemistry, and later became Head of Technical Services, where he was responsible for leading an exceptional team of more than 250 technicians who delivered technical services across the university. Simon is a vocal supporter of technicians and was instrumental in the University of York becoming a founding signatory of the Technician Commitment. Building on this experience, Simon became the Associate Lead for the Technician Commitment in 2020 and now works with the team to deliver the commitment across the UK and internationally. Today, we're looking forward to hearing more from Simon about how the commitment is championing technical skills, roles and careers. Welcome to the webinar, Simon. I'll now hand it over to you for your presentation.
Okay, so once again, thank you very much for attending today's webinar, and I'm going to take you on a whistle-stop tour of culture change in the technical community as driven by the technician commitment. And in particular, I want to highlight the positive aspects this has had on career development for technicians. And so, as Melissa said, we're very much keen to make this a discussion as far as we can within the webinar format. And so please do get your thinking caps on and think about what those questions may be as we go through. Post them in the question and answer function, and we'll get to them at the end. If we don't have time to answer all the questions, we will endeavour to answer them after the meeting. So please do ask those questions as we go through. So I thought I would start with a little bit of where I am. So I'm based out of the University of Nottingham. Nottingham is a town in the middle of the UK with its single time zone, as we were just discussing. So it's a small little country in many respects. And so I wondered what you would know of Nottingham. So I thought you might know it as the home place of Robin Hood. Okay, so Robin Hood came from there, depending on whether the Disney version or the more historically correct version. You may also know it for cricket. Trent Bridge, Nottinghamshire County Cricket Club is there. There's a few test matches that have been played between our respective countries over the time out there. You may know it because of its football team, Nottingham Forest, or its ice hockey team, the Panthers. But I'll be honest with you, I'm not actually from Nottingham. So I'm from Manchester. Okay, and so we've got the Manchester Storm ice hockey, and we've got Manchester United Football Club. There's no other football club in Manchester at all. Trust me on that one. There's just the one. But Nottingham has a university, which I hope you will now begin to remember for. And I want you to remember that the University of Nottingham is home to both the Technician Commitment and the UK Institute for Technical Skills and Strategy. Okay, and I'm going to take you on a journey through what those are over the next 45 minutes or so. So I guess starting at the very biggest picture that we want to think about here, what is it that we're trying to achieve here through the Technician Commitment? Well, what we're trying to do is we're trying to do world-leading research and innovation to solve those global challenges. Okay, that's what we need to do, be it climate change, be it the use of AI, whatever it might be. So we really need that cutting-edge research to solve these problems. And we know that collaborative teams drive success, right? We know that team science needs a diversity of talent and skills and insight. Okay, diverse teams are more effective, they're more efficient, and they conduct a better research. Variety of thinking really helps solve those problems. So that's what we're trying to do. That's what we're trying to get to. And so before I get on to technician commitment, and I will get through into technician commitment, I want to take you back. And in the UK, I'd say we'd take you back maybe about probably 15 years or so. And when we think about what image do we have when we say the word technician, okay? And so this is often the image that is projected, which is it's a cartoon that I found many years ago, and if you can't read it, it says, "But Professor, I don't understand how this lab produces so much high quality research when it's full of bottle washers." Okay, so technical skills are not given the critical recognition that they deserve, right? That's what we're trying to address. We need to value those technical skills. And kind of looking back on that, the way it's you can picture it is almost like a Downtown Abbey. Okay, Downton Abbey, forgive me. Okay, which is where there's two levels on which the higher education is operating. There's the kind of those at the top, those above, those who are seen, who are visible and are showing the positive aspects of what they do, and those who are down below, behind the scenes, doing the work, and that's often the technicians. That's the image that was projected. Um, Kind of like a minion is probably closer to my genre. And quite often, what you would hear is you would hear a lot of technical colleagues saying, "I'm just the technician." Okay, I'm just the technician, and we need to strike that from our vocabulary. We need to get it to, "I'm a technician and I'm proud to be a technician." And I guess this might not be surprising if you think about the way that higher education has celebrated the individual, the lone genius, the principal investigator, the person at the top of the research group, the person who heads that research group, often an academic colleague, okay, who has the name on the paper. And what we haven't done is we haven't really recognized the huge amount of teamwork that's required to deliver that research. And that's where technical professionals so often sit at the research and innovation stage, delivering that education and skills. So this is quite a wordy slide. Apologies for this. This is a definition of a technician. And so we jump forward now to 2023, and this is from UK Research and Innovation, which is the government's kind of science research and innovation funding entity. And so they tried to come up with a definition, and because it's within higher education and research, it needed to have a three-letter acronym. So that's a RTP, a research technical professional. Now, I'm not overly keen on that phrase because it doesn't include our education technicians, technicians who teach. But this is really at the research end of things, so I kind of understand where it's come from. And there's a definition there, and they're technology and skills specialists. They may have expert knowledge and technical competence in their fields, and they may include, but are not limited to. And then there's a whole rake of different kind of job titles. And that is a real challenge, right? It's how do we define that as a community? Because of that negative culture around technical professionals, it's led to some significant challenges that we had in the UK, and we're still working through. And I suspect it's something similar within Australia, but I'd be interested in your views on that. So technicians are a vital part of teams like experience a lack of visibility and recognition. We therefore have an identified shortage of technical skills, 700,000 when this was originally looked at. We have an aging population and we have significant EDI challenges, particularly within certain disciplines. Career pathways are tricky, they're unclear, it's difficult to know what they look like. And initiatives to ensure a pipeline of technical talent to sustain the technical skills we know over the medium and long term are globally few and far between. It's a complex landscape, and a lack of professional identity and negative connotations with the word technicians meant there was a problem. And so I guess that's kind of where we were kind of in the early 2010s. Okay, and here I want to highlight Dr. Kelly Via, MBE, who is the program director for the Technician Commitment, my boss. Okay, and she was instrumental in setting up the Technician in 2017, and this is really that vision of Kelly's has really helped change that landscape. And so an individual can make a difference, and there's an important message within that. So we're now in 2012, and Kelly co-authored an article, the first article in the Times Higher Education supplement ever on technicians, which, considering the THE had been around for decades prior to that, was very surprising. But this was back in the day when you actually got a hard paper newspaper copy of the magazine. And when it went to print, this was the image that was put alongside it. Okay, it's that Cinderella version. So it's not quite the image that we wanted to go with it, but you know what? It started a conversation. It started a bit of a movement. And Kelly became, as she would term it, an accidental advocate for the technical community and started getting raising the profile, that visibility of technicians, okay, be that through articles, be that through interviews on in newspapers, on the television, on various websites. And I guess this kind of progressed that visibility and recognition element. And in 2015, there was the Higher Education Technician Summit, which was the first gathering of technical professionals in the UK at that time. And part of that as well were the PAPEN prizes, which we used to celebrate and to recognise technical excellence. So we're in about 2015 now. And this got noticed by policymakers in government as well, this movement. And so Kelly was the face of an initiative to try and encourage women into technical roles as well. So this was 2015, 2016. But then in 2017, we launched the Technician Commitment. Okay, it launched on the 31st of May 2017 with 36 founding signatory organizations. Okay, and those 36 signatory organizations at that stage were mostly universities, but there were some research institutes in there as well. And what that did was that created an environment in which we could then begin to talk more about technical profession as a career. In 2020, because of that culture change, we were able to unlock £5 million in funding for something called the Talent Programme, which I'll come on to. And then in 2024, we launched the UK Institute for Technical Skills and Strategy. And we'll take each of those in turn. So, the technician commitment, what is it? Well, it's essentially four founding principles. It's based around four pillars, okay, which are visibility, recognition, career development, and sustainability. And organizations sign up to it, higher education organizations sign up to say, we're going to help support our technicians under each of these. So this is it in its entirety. It is a single side of A4, deliberately made very simple. So it's easy to understand, even for very senior managers can usually get to the bottom of a side of A4. And so it's just signing up to principles. And then what we do is we have a process of peer review and action plan, which is how an institution delivers against those. But once that started in 2017, and we started to talk about these technician commitment with our 36 founding signatories, then suddenly people got interested. They got in touch and wanted to engage with us. So, a number of different organizations then reached out and said, we'd like to better recognize and support our technical professionals as well. How do we do it? So we began to develop a community. Okay. And this community is really important. That's where the power of the technician commitment comes from. And so what we do is we get that community together twice a year at various kind of events across the UK. Be that in New Scientist Live was the first one in 2017. We've been to the House Tower of London, okay, which was a great place to go and have a signatory event. We've been to York, we've been to Cardiff, we've been to the Royal Society. We've also been to the Jaguar experience, which was great. So we got to see how Jaguars were being made as well. But it's important that we bring the community together to network and to also share good practice and receive sector updates. So this is it. The power of the technician commitment. What is it? It's in this photograph. It's the community. It's people coming together, okay, and collectively addressing sector level challenges. So when a university or research institute becomes a signatory, they begin a process of self-assessment and action planning, as I'd mentioned, okay? So we ask them to submit their technician commitment action plan 12 to 18 months after signing the commitment. That's a 2-year action plan. We then come back 2 years later, ask for analysis of that, and we peer review those submissions. So that community that we've developed then provides critical friend challenge to show whether or not an institution is delivering against its pledges. And that's across the whole gamut of a different range of universities and research organizations, be them from smaller, kind of more teaching focused institutions to large Russell Group, highly research active organizations. And so it's given that kind of it's empowered people to have those conversations with the senior management about how can we better support a group of technicians. So we also have a group of not signatories, what we term supporter organizations, and they're sector institutions that can help support technicians, but in many cases don't directly employ technicians. So, it's quite often professional bodies, Royal Society of Chemistry, Biology, Institute of Animal Technology. We were very pleased that the Royal Society, the world's oldest scientific society, wanted to become a supporter of the technician commitment. Research Libraries UK, we have a very broad definition of technicians. We've also got support from UKRI, RSC, and the Royal Society, and I'll come back to the important part that UK Research and Innovation, the funding agent, the government funding agency, has played in the development. We also have the Times Higher Education Awards Outstanding Technician of the Year category, which has been in place since 2019. And this was something that we were keen to celebrate on the national level, technicians. What are, certainly for the UK and Irish HE sector, often termed the Oscars of that sector. And so it was a challenge to get the Times Higher to have it as an award category, and we sponsor it now. Um, but since then, it's been their most popular category. And we've had all sorts of different winners for all sorts of different reasons, just raising that profile again. We've also produced lots of sector level reports to knowledge and understanding of the sector because there was a distinct lack of information enabling strategic decision to be made because we didn't know what the technical landscape looked like. So we've got reports on EDI, mental health and well-being funding, and the role of technicians in knowledge exchange, and many others as well. They're just a selection. We've developed clearly defined career pathways. You'll see this come up in a little bit more detail further on, but I want to highlight in particular that what we've got within this is we've got a technical specialist pathway. Okay, so where we're recognizing the technical skills and providing career pathways for technicians that have them. We also started to influence government policy, which was, I guess it wasn't part of our strategic aim, but once we put ourselves out there, then government came to us and asked what would be the technicians' view on this. So we influenced the UK Research and Development Roadmap, the Future Research Assessment Programme, review of research bureaucracy, people and culture, and certainly, we have a research excellence framework that's run every 7 years and is running again in 2029. And within that, we're now recognizing technicians as being an important contributor to that research excellence. We also do a lot of outreach. So, this is Technicians, the David Sainsbury's Gallery. So at the Science Museum in London, we have an entire wing dedicated to celebrating what it is that technicians do. International sharing of best practice, we'll come back to this a little bit later on in the presentation, but our first international signatory, we're very proud to say, was the University of Sydney. So well done to the University of Sydney, but we've since developed and are developing much more so. Now, what we have here is we've got a video, but I'm not going to play it because what I want to do is I want to get through the slides that I've got, and I'm just looking at the time. Okay, so apologies for that. What I should have said as well, I will circulate these slides afterwards, or I will make a copy available to Melissa, who will circulate them so you'll be able to see that. So, what I want to do now is just talk a little bit about the talent program, okay, which is in between the technician commitment and the Institute for Technical Skills and Strategy. And in particular, I want to talk about the Talent Policy Commission. So there were 3 programs to the talent program, which is the Policy Commission, Culture Change Project, and Training Empowerment. So this was essentially, it was trying to, I guess, pilot a lot of the activities that we're now doing through the ITSS. So one of the most important things that we did was that we developed, we put together a talent board of policy commissioners, as you can see on the slide now. And what they were looking to do is to just look across the entire HE sector. What did the technical landscape look like? In particular, practice and contribution, workforce, funding, pathways and progression, perception, policy, and partnerships. So it was really trying to understand what that landscape looked like because there was a definite lack of understanding at that time. And the output of this, and I strongly recommend that you take a look at this, is the Talent Policy Commission report. Now, it's a long document, so there's 147 pages, but it's very well structured and it's very easy to read. But there are a number of recommendations that I would recommend you have a look at. And it gave research findings and evidence-based recommendations about what the sector needed to do to address some of those challenges that we saw as a community. And that was launched in 2022. And it's got a great reception. So once you've put that data out there and allow people to challenge you to have those conversations, you can then begin to engage in the conversation about the value and of technicians. And that's either through Advanced HE, Times Higher Research Professionals, various other places. So I'm not going to go through all of the recommendations, but in particular, we were talking in today's webinar about career pathways. Okay. And so recommendation 9 of the 16 from that policy commission document is employees of technical staff should ensure visibility of defined career pathways and progression routes with accurate and standardized job descriptions and technical roles. And then we should consider some pilot activity similar to our academic colleagues. Okay. And it was often said that, well, this is really difficult. And it is, but it can be done. And so we've seen this slide before, right? So this is a complex slide. I suspect you can't see the detail on it, but hopefully when you see the presentation circulated, you will. But it just shows a career pathway as a technician, and in particular, technical specialist pathway. And so I would highlight, for example, the University of Liverpool's work in this, which is some beacon activity that they've done. And they have research technical professional pathways where you can be promoted within that pathway in a similar manner to the academic colleagues can be promoted in that, because that was always the comparison that was the problem. And that's since that because we have a good collaborative community, we share that practice amongst ourselves. And so that's beginning to be seen at other institutions. So the University of Warwick, the University of Nottingham have similarly got promotional pathways. Newcastle University have the first technical professor, which was great to see, right? To show that we've really recognized those technical skills as delivering value to the institution. So gold star to all those organizations. Another recommendation was really about appointing a strategic technical lead within an institution, right? To support and to develop what are a critically important group of staff enabling a university to be what a university is or a research institute. So technicians are involved in all aspects. I don't need to tell this group of people on the webinar the importance of technicians, but they're involved in all the research that we do. They're often the people running the equipment to generate the data to give to the results to the students, to the researchers to support that, or they're setting up the teaching labs to deliver the teaching practicals in the chemistry lab or whatever it may be, or just making the place work. Okay. And this became particularly apparent during COVID, for example, where technicians were still in keeping things safe. But I guess a number of institutions have now put those strategic technical leads in place. Nottingham, Leicester, Manchester Met, Aston, Warwick, Exeter, Reading, a number of others have been. And that allows that visibility and recognition institutionally. Recommendation 16 of the Talent Commission advises the creation of a new collaborative entity to be called the UK Institute for Technical Skills and Strategy. And by the fact I have it on the screen behind me, I suspect you know how that turned out. So the UK Institute for Technical Skills and Strategy was launched in 2024. Okay, well, actually, formally towards the end of 2023. And it was really very welcome. There's a £5.5 million investment to establish the institute, right? So this is the UK funding agencies showing a real commitment to technical professionals to invest that money in developing an institute to support their continuing professional development. And I'm going to take you through a little bit of what that is. So we launched. It was well received. There was a lot of news was made about it. We launched it in London in March 2023 was the announcement, and there was a lot of positivity about that. We got a lot of press. And we even got the Prime Minister at that time was interested, apparently. Well, I'm not sure he was because actually that came from the Student Union newspaper of the University of Nottingham. But interestingly, they chose the Prime Minister to put above that article. Not quite sure why. But what's the vision? So the vision really of the UK ITSS is powered by its technical workforce, the UK become a global leader in science, technology, engineering, medicine, and the creative industries, and that technical careers are recognised, developed, respected, and aspired to. And there's a lot in that vision statement, actually. And there's two things I want to highlight in particular. One of which is that we've purposefully included creative industries in that. When we launched the technician commitment back in 2017, it was rather STEM focused, right? So we just had this picture, almost like, you know, if you search what does a technician look like in Google, you'll probably see someone middle-aged, white, with a beard, in a lab coat, pressing some buttons on the machine. And it'd be interesting. Maybe I should do that in AI. Not now. Anyway, so it's important that we've developed over the years to bring in our creative industry colleagues because they're highly technical as well. But also the second part is important as well. So we want to support the UK in delivering its strategic objectives for the economy, but also we want to support technicians as well, make them proud to be technicians. Once again, it's a collaborative initiative. So these are all our partners. There's too many to go into there, but you can see the point I'm trying to get across, okay? That the power of the technician commitment and ITSS and the power of what we've been able to achieve here is really about community and collaboration. And I guess that's the take-home message. So what I'll do for the last 10 minutes or so, and then I'll open it for questions. So once again, please do put those questions in the questions and answers part. So for the last 10 minutes, I'll just go through what the ITSS is and just how we've supported the technical community. Sorry, forgive me. So there's 7 parts to it. There's research and policy, community and practice, technician commitment, learning and development, education pathways, consulting, and international. So that's how we've put ourselves together, or it's how we've become. When we started, we were a little bit smaller, but we've been successful. So that's great. I won't go into the technician commitment again, but just to say it's really a culture change project. What we're trying to do is shift the culture around technicians, and that does take time. That does take time. What I want to do, though, is very quickly go through what we've achieved through the ITSS to hopefully give you a little bit of inspiration as to something that could be achieved in a similar manner in Australia. So I want to talk about research and policy. So what we've done is we've continued our theme from the technician commitment of creating that sector level knowledge and understanding. So there's just a selection of reports here, and as I say, when I circulate these slides, they'll all be clickable links, so you can go find all these reports and read them. And in particular, there are the recommendations that are in there, be that about research culture or health and safety, right? Health and safety is really important. You ask any vice chancellor of a university, they will say it's our #1 priority. And quite often that ends up being delivered by technicians, but it's rarely recognised. There's reports into strategic technical leadership and the importance of technicians in COVID-19. We're also doing kind of more academic type research on technical roles as well. So this is an example where technicians as teachers, the emerging role of technical staff within higher education and learning environments. So technicians have always taught. We've often kind of, certainly in the UK, we've tried to avoid that uncomfortable truth, okay, that technicians teach by calling it demonstrating or developing skills in undergraduates, but it's actually teaching. We talked about how technicians support knowledge exchange activities, quite often with business. Technicians are problem solvers, okay, and businesses want people to solve their problems. And so often there's a good match there. Um, we've looked at kind of crossing and dismantling boundaries as well. Okay, in so much as we do have technicians who teach, but we call them many other things for some reasons, and we should celebrate them. So we published the paper. Why is it problematic for technicians to say they teach in higher education? It's a really good question, and I recommend you read that paper by Tim and Kelly. We've also published various blogs in this space as well. Too often technicians are seen as backroom staff, but actually we can really help think about how to run universities more efficiently and more effectively. And then we also published a book, which was exciting. Okay, the first book on technicians in higher education and research globally, we think. Please tell me if we're wrong, but we believe it is the first one, and that is available to purchase now. And it's a great read. It's a great read. We've influenced government policy, be that the research and development roadmap, the science and technology framework, the industrial strategy. And we've also engaged with organisations like the Royal Society and thinking what the science landscape looks like in 2040. So, we're getting that technical voice, that technician voice being heard in all sorts of different places. We've responded to policy consultations from the government in particular, once again, on behalf of the community. So that voice is heard when the policies are being developed, and that has implications further down the line. In particular, one of the most useful collaborations that we developed was working with UK funding councils, and in particular UK Research and Innovation. So they have a annual budget of somewhere in the region of, I think it's £30 billion, I think, so it's a lot of money that they allocate, okay, across the UK sector, so they can very, very much help drive change. And what we've done through our working with, sorry, what I should have said is that UKRI are both signatories and supporters of the technician commitment. Okay, because they are both a funder and so therefore can help support technicians in that, but they also employ a lot of technicians at various kind of uh, institutes and facilities that they run in-house. Okay, so they're both an employer and an influencer, and they're both a signatory and a supporter. And they developed an action plan saying how they were going to support their technicians. And part of that was was some what we would term myth busting. Okay, excuse me, I'll just have a little drink. Thank you. So one of those was the RTPs. Remember, in UKRI world, RTPs are technicians, research technical professionals. There was this myth that they cannot apply for funding. Well, they can. They have to be included as technicians. No, they don't. They can be principal investigators. Okay, they can be the owner of that grant. And actually, on the last BBSRC equipment call, the top two funded, the top two scored applications were both headed by technicians. And peer review is not something for RTPs. It is, okay? One of the best ways to learn how to write a grant is to be a grant evaluator. So getting involved on those as a technician is really important. That also helped unlock investment. Okay, so in this, the EPSRC, the Engineering and Physical Sciences Research Council, uh, allocated £16 million to strategic technical platform grants. Okay, just last year, and so we're showing how we can unlock that investment. We've engaged with REF 2029, which once again is assessing how we do research. We work with UK academies where we put on a joint event with the Royal Society, recognizing and developing technical talent strategies for growth. So you can see how we've really driven that policy agenda over the last 2 to 3 years. And what we've also done is we've developed a learning and development academy for technicians because remember, we want to support technicians themselves as well as doing that sector level work. So part of that is we run a lot of training and development courses, particularly around technical development and leadership. So we've got a selection of them here. We have executive programs in strategic technical leadership, Herschel programs, higher education, postgraduate certificate, and various other leadership programs. We also run what we term festivals of learning, okay, which are often online learning festivals that we run in spring and winter, and we bring technicians together to give them bespoke training and development opportunities, be that in project management, technical teaching, or career development programs. We partnered with Nottingham University Business School for the executive program in strategic technical leadership, which was the first course of its time for technical leaders in the UK. Really pleasingly, we developed the Herschel program for women in technical leadership. Okay, and this is one of our most successful, and we're one of those courses that we're really proud of the impact it's had. So this is just a photograph from one of the celebration events from one cohort, and we've run 4 cohorts, I think now, and we've trained just under 1,000 women in technical leadership, both existing technical leaders and aspiring technical leaders as well. Because one of the outputs from our understanding of the sector was that there was a significant drop off of female representation as you work through the seniority. So we've instituted the course to address it. So we've delivered over 400 workshops and 6,000 places taken up by UK technicians. So we're really beginning to support that community. We also have a community and practice hub, and we'll go through this quite quickly. We have what we term a capability sharing showcase, which is really about giving access to equipment, but more important, expertise to run that equipment, the technicians in there, to not just say, here's a piece of equipment, best of luck, but to actually help and support and deliver that in delivering the results to support the research. And we also have funding available to enable PhD students and other researchers to access equipment. We have a knowledge exchange placement program, okay, where we support technicians in going learning a new specialist skill from experts in the area, and that's across the UK and in fact globally. Okay, so Morgan Shaw went from the University of Dundee to the University of Alberta. Okay, and Kirsty has gone from University College London to Swansea. Okay, so but my point is that what we're doing is we're enabling and empowering technicians to go and to learn a new skill and to bring that back to their home institution. We also have developed a number of new national technical networks, okay, and there's just 4 of them here. Technology Specialist Network is one of our most successful networks, and that was really bringing a lot of technical specialists will have a particular area in which they are an absolute expert, but therefore that can feel a little bit isolating. And what we've given them is a community to bring them together, and that's worked very well. We've got an environmental sustainability network, strategic technical leaders, and EDI networks as well. We've continued the Higher Education Technician Summit, okay, which has happened every 2 years since 2015. So the last one was in 2025, bringing together over 1,000 different 1,000 technicians at those 500 at each event. So it's one of the largest events in the calendar. So what you've seen is we've funded over 250 grants to help transform into learning and development opportunities. We've had HETS has been attended by over 1,250 delegates. And so you can see that we're beginning to really push that visibility and recognition. We have an education and pathways lab as well. Okay, so what we have is we have a technical career pathway lab, which is where we're trying to take that knowledge and understanding we've developed as a sector into how to develop career pathways for technicians and sharing that across the community. And we've seen this before, but I just want to highlight in particular work from Manchester Metropolitan University, who have really worked on supporting technicians who teach, and they've got a education technical professionals pathway available as well as their research technical pathways. We've have a program of T levels. It's equivalent to A levels in the UK. And what we've done is we've arranged over 150 work placements for young people to address sustainability. We have ITSS Consulting, which is a consulting arm to help support institutions to deliver bespoke projects for them. And then just finally, I'll finish on international. So we've got international sharing of best practice. We've got a number of different technician commitment signatories from across the globe. We've got the Malawi Welcome Program. We've got the Australasian Cytometry Society, Munster Technological University in Ireland, the Malagan Institute from New Zealand. We've got a couple more that I can't announce yet because they're not there. But in Australia, we currently have 5 organisations have signed as signatories of the technician commitment. So that's the University of Sydney, Children's Cancer Institute, Monash, Murdoch, and QSIF, if that's how I'm supposed to pronounce it, I'm hoping. But we're beginning to develop a community there, right? That's how these things start. And so that's really, really pleasing. This is a photo of Kelly. He's in the middle of that when she visited Australia just at the end of last year. I get to speak to you from the top of my house, whereas Kelly gets to go to Australia. Not sure that's fair, but you know, she's the boss, so such is life. We're also partnering through Universitas 21 with a number of different organizations across the globe to see whether or not there's more we can do to help support colleagues in other in other territories. We're also trying to convince the Australian government to support us in a more literal sense at this stage as well. We're also working on North America, and so Kelly has spoken at the NIH in the US to try and bring North America on board as well. So you can see how we're really beginning to take the principles of the technician commitment out across. So what we're trying to do is we're going to try to take this view of success in academia as it was, with that principal investigator at the top that we talked about. And we want to have a culture where we recognize the roles of everyone. So we end up with something that looks a little bit more like this, okay? And so if you don't take anything else from this talk, please just never say, I'm just the technician, okay? We're all part of this together. So thank you very, very much for your time. I've gone on a little bit longer, but hopefully we still have some time for some questions. There are some contact details which I'll leave up just for a minute or two for you to take, if you will, and then I will circulate the slides at the end. So thank you again for your attention.
Thank you, Simon, for sharing that really wide array of activities that have been happening in the UK to support technicians. We do have time for questions. If you have a question, please write that into the Q&A box. I can see that this is generating a lot of interest and curiosity within our audience. So we may not be able to answer all of the questions today, but we will collate them and then Simon will provide you with written answers after the fact. I also wanted to share with you, Simon, that this is really the disconnect between technicians and academics and professional pathways is really resonating with the audience, both here in Australia, and we have some people from New Zealand online as well.
Okay.
So my first question is, clearly there's been a lot of success in the UK and a lot of activity happening around this. Could this work in Australia, and what do we need to do in order to be able to achieve that?
A nice small question to
Yes.
start with, then that's fine. So look, could it work? Yes, it could. Okay, and I'll tell you why I think it could work, and what you need to do. So really, the reason we've been successful, I think, is because back in 2017, oh well, I guess prior to that, Kelly had put a lot of pre-work into launching the technician commitment. But what it did was it provided a community. It provided a voice, okay, where you could speak as one, okay, as to what were the challenges that an institution was having. So if I reflect back on my career, okay, at that stage, I was a technical manager in chemistry at that stage when we signed the technician commitment, and I had problems around career development. So one of the things I did as a newly appointed technical manager for the department is go and speak to the technician and say, what was the problem? And often the same response was, I want a career. I want to be able to develop my career, but I'm stuck. And I thought this was a real problem, and it was a real problem, but I thought it was just the problem that I had. Yeah. I then went out across the university and found out other departments had it. And then I actually started to reach out further and I found out other institutions had it. But what the technician commitment did is it brought those institutions together and gave them a collective voice with which to then have conversations both internally with your senior management in your organization, but also externally with those, kind of the government bodies, the funding agencies, those people that can influence the change. So I guess what do you need to do? You need to develop a community of practice. You need to bring it together, put those people in a room, and just get them to problem solve because that's what technicians do, right? So can it work? Yes. What do you need to do? Develop a community, and then you will be able to address some of the challenges that you have as a sector.
Thanks, Simon. So there's a related question to this, and it's how do you convince your organization to think long term and invest in these roles? What can we as individuals do?
That's a really good question. So I guess what we found actually was that once you gave a framework to an organization, which the technician commitment is, in which they can better support their technicians, there was actually quite a willingness to support their technical community. Okay, so actually we've grown to 104, well, 100, nearly 150 signatory and supporter organizations. But actually, the first 100 or so of those came almost to us because they wanted to support their technical community and didn't know how. But equally, some of those that were less engaged suddenly found out that actually other organizations, other higher education, other universities were signing up to this thing called the technician commitment. And quite often that then generated a discussion as to, well, what is it? What are they doing? Why are they doing it? What are the advantages? And so one of the things that we found is that once you started getting past the critical mass of signatory and support organizations, others started to come along as well, right? Because they didn't want to be seen as not supporting their technicians, because then they might lose technicians going to others that are better supporting them. So actually, once you've got that community, that critical mass, then people start to come to you and want to support their community.
Thanks. And we, as you showed at the end there are already 5 signatories in Australia. So if this is something you would like to see happening at your own organisation, go and have a talk to them and see how they're approaching it and how it's working out. I also wanted to highlight that this is on the radar of the government as well. Supporting the workforce is part of the National Distributed Research Infrastructure Strategy, and that's subject to an open call for suggestions on how to address this tricky issue sector-wide at the moment. So watch this space government-wise, and we'll see what happens in the next year or so. I wanted to come back to the definition of who is a technician, because there's a couple of questions around this. So who decides which jobs are technicians and what's in and what's out. For example, some of the things that are coming through in the chat are librarians, technicians. Does it include IT and software professionals as well? Who's in and who's out and who decides?
So that's a fantastic question, and you will not be surprised that it's the one we get asked on a regular basis. And I can still remember the first technician commitment signatory event where we discussed exactly that point. And the answer is that the first question we ask in our self-assessment form is how does your institution define technicians? Okay. And it's interesting the responses you get. Some you get almost a dictionary definition response back, others are much longer. So I guess what I would say is that we do not define what a technician is. Okay. If there is a technical skills aspect to your role and you want to self-identify as a technician, you are welcome to join our community. And so we had that conversation. What you might have seen, one of our supporters was Research Libraries UK, right? And so we had exactly that conversation with them, and they said, "Well, are we technicians?" And we very helpfully reflected that question back. Well, do you think you're technicians? And we went through what some of their colleagues did, and there was a very significant technical aspect to that role, and so therefore, they were part of that community, and we welcomed them in. So I guess we would say if you self-identify as a technician, you're in. Does it involve IT and software? Yes. We've had conversations with many about the wonders that are research software engineers, are they a technician? Are they part of the technician commitment? And I guess as long as we're achieving the objectives of supporting the individual, then if they're a technician or not, okay, is less important. One of the challenges that I had when I was at York was that I wanted to identify technicians across the organization. So I asked HR, how many technicians do we have? They gave me a list that was just fundamentally wrong because we didn't have that information, right? So we had to go out and we had to ask the question of individuals. Do you consider yourself a technician and do you want to be part of this movement?
Thank you. I think we're seeing similar conversations here in Australia, and different universities are approaching it differently. We've seen some insert a third stream into the kind of enterprise bargaining agreements where we have professional staff, academic staff, and then academic specialist is the word I've seen used often. So it sounds like it's
Right.
up to your organisation to define that. And
It to a degree it does, yeah, because what we want to do is we want to be a broad, inclusive movement, shall we say. So if you want to be part of this, then we would welcome you in. And so therefore we purposefully do not define what a technician is.
And there are many, many questions to choose from, and we have time for just one more. So I think I'm going to choose, what does it mean to the individual when your organisation becomes a signatory?
Okay, so that's good because what I would say it means to the individual is that it shows that your organization, your employer, is therefore beginning to often because the technician commitment is a journey, right? So you can start off very small, okay, with only a certain number of initiatives in place. So you can start really small. But what it means to the individual is that your organization recognizes the value of you as an individual, and it can also then enable you to say, well, if you look at our website, for example, all the action plans for all our signatory organizations are available. So you can then look at that and you can say, well, other institutions are doing this to support the technicians. Maybe we can do it. So um, one of the easiest measures of impact really was when we across the sector we've had a number of cases where technicians don't have professional development time allocated to them. Whereas what we've kind of set as a stand, or what the sector has set, is that 10 days per year of continuing CPD time is made available to all technicians. And so that's begin to permeate across. It also gives you access to a number of training and development opportunities to help you then prepare for your next career move. And in the medium term, your organization, because our third pillar is career development for technicians, what we expect organizations is to develop career pathways for technicians. And so in the medium term, you will get a career development pathway available made to you as well.
Thanks so much, Simon. Unfortunately, we are going to have to leave it there for today. Thank you to everybody for asking your wonderful questions. I have just a couple of wrap-up slides to work through, and then I will let you go to your days. You can find out more about what's happening in biocommons and our upcoming events, or join one of our communities. There's information about that on our website, or you can follow us on Blue Sky, LinkedIn, or YouTube. Thank you once again, Simon, for joining us today and for staying up late in the UK. It's been wonderful to hear how this is working in the UK and to think about some of the possibilities and the opportunities for us here in Australia. I'd also like to thank everybody for joining us and to acknowledge that Australian Biocommons is enabled by NCRIS via Bioplatforms Australia funding. Thanks for joining us. We hope you enjoyed the webinar, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Until then, goodbye for now and enjoy the rest of your day.